Hello, everybody. Am I live? Okay, yes. Please do write into the chat box and let me know if you can see me clearly and if I am audible. Um, and then I will go ahead with today's episode. I just want a heads up from one of you here to let me know that I am live and you're able to see me clearly. Okay, yes. So great. Hello, everybody. I am Sapna Mahadevan, your host for this wonderful, wonderful evening. And I welcome all of you again to PSTV live episode, right? And today, being a Saturday special episode, we have a story, a classic story that too, that we bring to you. And we are going to break it down into easy, simple, comprehensible topics like the title, all about the author, how you can be writing a story just like this one, what are the essentials, the different plot building pointers that you need to keep in mind if you want to write a story like this one. And of course, we will also have the fun part where I'm going to recite the story as well to you. So let me tell you that this is one of the stories. One of the classic stories that too, which is all of our favorite. And I don't think any of you would tell me that you've not heard the story, you do not know the story. That's really not possible, right? So it's a famous, popular children's fairy tale. And just for fun, I'm going to recite that story again to you today evening, right? So, are we all excited? Are we thrilled and elated? Do let me know in the chat box. How has your weekend been? What are the different things that you're doing? Maybe I had some creative projects that I did today, and it was all the more fun, right? So yes, do write to me in the chat box here. Let's have a conversation going. Let's be interactive and a participative audience as always. And too much fun to be able to connect with all of you wonderful people today, right? So yes, thanks a lot for all of the good evening messages, for the hellos in the chat box, the emojis, and all the love that I can see coming up here in the chat box. Great. So yes, let's get going to the episode of today. We have the fiction story writing masterclass, and for today, the coming up segment looks a tad bit different. And here are the specially curated elements we have for today's episode, right? So it starts with an introduction of the story, and then we tell you more about the title and the author. Of course, tips about what are the essentials or the prerequisites that you need to think of while you are writing a story just like this one. And there is a fun segment called Think Like a Pro, where I want you to put on your thinking caps and give me answers to the questions that follow, right? Apart from that, we also have a quiz segment going today. So much more coming up in today's episode, right? And finally, we have a story in a nutshell, the plot building pointers. And before I end the broadcast, as always, I will be delving deeper into all of the tips and tricks that I have told you in today's episode. So that's called a roundup of the learnings and the insights. And apart from that, there is a recommendation of the day. And of course, how can we forget the amusing icebreaker questions that we always have in our episodes, right? So that's about how the episode looks for today. And let me quickly get going to the first icebreaker question. I know that you're all waiting with a bated breath for the story there. And so certain things that we need to go ahead with before we reach to the synopsis, right? So the first icebreaker question coming up here onto my screen: never have I ever split milk on my book. That's the question that we have here. And quickly in the chat box, do let me know if you have the habit of having your book besides food and drinks that you have, or the milk that you drink every morning? Do you have the habit of having that in the dining table, or do you are you not that particular, and have you ever split milk onto your books? That's the question there. And quickly in the chat box, you can give me the answers to this one. Yes is the comment that I get there. We all have done it one time or the other, right? Okay, yes is another comment there. I have food at the dining table. Great. Okay, sometimes I have spilled milk. Okay. No, ma'am is another comment that I get here. Great. So thanks a lot for all of those responses there. Um, most of them are yes. Divya tells me no. So great. I didn't. Okay, lovely. So, yes, let's get going now to the next segment. Good to know about you all being interactive with me here in the chat box. If you have any suggestions for me, if you have any questions about today's episode or about the past episodes, then do feel welcome enough to write your answer in the chat box there, right? So, let's move ahead. I'm going to disclose what's the book. And the book or the classic story that we have for today is, of course, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. So that's one special story. And we all have kind of like, grown up listening to that story. It's a favorite bedtime story of all times, right? Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. And let me tell you what the title means. So, from that title, it suggests that the story is about a lovely girl called Snow White. And from that name itself, we understand that she is fair and lovely and beautiful. And there are seven dwarfs in this story here, right? So that's what the title suggests there. And before we go any further into the details about the author, let me ask you another icebreaker question. Never have I ever pretended to be sick to get away from studies. So, have you ever been naughty enough to do this? Do let me know in the chat box there, and you can definitely be honest with me anytime if you have pretended to be sick to just escape studies. Has that ever happened with you? Do let me know in the chat box here. Or do we have all sincere students watching the episode today? Yes. Quickly in the chat box, yes or no is all that I'm asking for. That's quite simple. Think about this one and give me an answer in the chat box. No coming up there, not at all. Okay, so Varun is really sure about that one. um, Yes, and Angel Angel Hanu asking me what is my name. Okay, so yes, let me introduce myself again. I am Sapna Mahadevan, and I am a public speaking expert at PlanetSpark. Right. So yes, Divya says no again. Angel also says no. So all sincere students here, right? All of you students, are you all students? Do let me know in the chat box that too. Which class are you in, or what are you currently pursuing? Anything about you that you would want to let me know, please do go ahead and type out your answers in the chat box there. Yes, so that was the next question that we had. Never have I ever pretended to be sick to get away from studies, and all of my audience members here giving me no as an answer there. Really glad to get that answer there. And let's move ahead into the next segment. The segment is who is the author, right? So Brothers Grimm are the authors for this particular story there, and they were German academics, cultural researchers, and authors who together collected and published folklore. And they are among the best known storytellers of folk tales, popularizing stories such as Cinderella, The Frog Prince, Hansel and Gretel, Little Red Riding Hood, Rapunzel, Sleeping Beauty, and Snow White. And their first collection of folk tales, children's and household tales, began publication in the year 1812. Um, a. Venkata Sivasankar. Okay, isn't this a Planet Spark? What is that? Methy? I'm not sure about that. It is a Planet Spark live episode. And I do come live every day at 6 p.m. India time, and we delve in creative writing aspects. So we give you a lot of tips and tricks on how you can be writing a short story in a particular genre all by yourself. So that is about this episode here. Angel says that she is 6 years old. I am in six. Oh, I'm so sorry. So she is in sixth grade, and Divya is in seventh grade. Lovely. Okay, methodology class. It's not a methodology class. It's a live episode where we talk about fiction story writing. Yes. So that's about it. And today we have a Saturday special episode where we are dealing with a classic story of um, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Yes. So, yes, do write to me which part of the globe are you watching me from? And I would really love to know about that. And yes, give me just 2 seconds. I'll go ahead with the episode. Okay. Yes. So let's move ahead. Um, this was about the author here. Brothers Grimm are the authors who wrote Snow White and many other folk tales which are really popular. Venkata Sivasankar watching me from Andhra Pradesh in India. Great. Thanks a lot for joining the live here. And yes, let's move further ahead into our episode. We have what's the genre, right? So, quickly in the chat box, can you, in 60 seconds flat, give me the answer as to what do you think? Which is the genre or the category that Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs fall into? Yes. Do give me the answers quickly in the chat box there. What kind of stories are these called? Waiting for your answers here in the chat box. And I have talked about this in the initial, when the episode started, right? So if you have been listening to me intently, then I'm going to get some correct answers there. Guess the genre in 60 seconds flat. Okay, so that's correct. It is fairy tale, and yes, it's also called children's literature, right? So that's the genre that we have for Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Divya says that it's fiction, and that also is correct in a way. It is fictional in the sense that it did not happen really, and all of those events are actually stemming up from the author's imagination. So it is fiction, but if you think about it, then the particular specific category that we would give this particular story into is children's literature or fairy tale, right? So, yes, thanks a lot for all of those answers there. And let's get going to the next segment. We have another icebreaker question come up there. Never have I ever borrowed my siblings' pens without asking. That's another question there. I certainly have borrowed my siblings' dress, I would say, a lot, outfits. Never, I can't think of a pen, but yes, I have borrowed my siblings' outfits and garments, and that's really fun, isn't it? Okay. Any answers in the chat box here? Yes, is one answer that I get there from Akash. Okay. Okay, lovely. So let's move ahead into the next segment. We have the essentials come up next. So, for you to write a story just like Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, what are the essentials that you would want to look into, right? So, three of these prerequisites I'm going to talk about now. First one is about the protagonist, the setting, and the conflict. So, all of this in particular is about Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs today, right? And the protagonist, we already know we had many characters in the story. There were animal characters as well and humans as well who played an important role in this story, right? And Snow White, Seven Dwarfs, sparrows, deers, and many other animals are present in the story, right? The antagonist, however, is a wicked witch who actually is Snow White's stepmother, right? So these are the primary characters, I would say, in this particular story. And now moving ahead to the setting of the story. Now, let me tell you, since it is a fairy tale, it has a fableish setting with many elements of fantasy in it. Fantasy elements would mean elements that are fantastical, and they are really something that cannot happen in the real world, right? So in Snow White, we see the deers and the sparrows speak with Snow White. She's able to understand them. And the story is based in a lush green forest with all of the type of creatures living there. And this is where even the seven dwarfs lived in their cottage, right? Now, other scenes are also set in a castle where the stepmother lived, and in stables and backyards of the castle where Snow White lived, right? So these are some of the settings which had different ambience and different tone to the story. These were all an imperative part of the story. And towards the later part of the story, we see that the setting was mostly the lush green forest from where Snow White and the seven dwarfs lived, right? Now, that was about the setting in the essentials. And now, for the third element, we have the conflict. So, we all know that while we are thinking about a story, every story for that matter has a conflict, a particular clash of interest that both of the parties in the story have amongst themselves, right? And this conflict here is one of the writer's main tools, which inculcates a lot of drama into the story, and it makes the story interesting and viable, right? So, like I'm saying, for every story, there needs to be a conflict. Similarly, in Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, we see that her stepmother wanted to kill her, and the plot of the Snow White is that the queen ordered someone to kill her because, whenever the witch asked the mirror who is the prettiest of them all, the mirror always used to reply and give the name of Snow White, right? And this really made the witch jealous, and that's why she always wanted to kill Snow White, right? And that's one of the conflicts that we have going in the story all throughout, right? And that is one of the plots which ties the story together. Yes. Now, after all of those essentials here, let's look at one of the first synonymous segments. And let me tell you all that synonym would mean similar word meanings, right? So for the word fairest, the synonyms that you can use interchangeably could be most beautiful, most attractive, or even prettiest, right? So that's the first synonymic word for today. Do write down these words in your Google It journal. And it's surely going to become a ready reckoner of sorts where you can keep checking all of those words and amplify your vocabulary, right? So, yes, that's the first synonymic word, fairest. And I got a like there from Sudeshna Roy Sanyal. Thanks a lot for that. And let's move ahead into the next icebreaker question. There it is. Never have I ever drawn a funny cartoon on the face of my sibling while they were asleep, right? So, have you ever done that? Again, a mischievous activity here, a prank that you have played on your siblings maybe when they were asleep. Do let me know in the chat box here if you can recall doing any of such incidents in the past, right? No is the answer that I get there, and quite interesting is one of the comments there. I get a lot of emojis as well, smileys all my way here in the chat box, right? I know that's quite amusing, isn't it? Drawn a funny cartoon on the face of your sibling. Okay, so no is the answer. None of my audience members here recall doing any such activity, right? Okay, great. So let's move ahead. We have the next segment, which is a fun segment. It is Think Like a Pro, and you need to guess these flavors of ice cream. Yes, ice cream, we scream, you scream, we all scream for ice cream, right? So yes, one of the favorite food items here. And quickly tell me the flavor if you can guess it by looking at the picture. The first one comes up here. There it is. Oh wow, that looks like really delicious, isn't it? So yes, what is the answer that you can think of? What is the flavor of the ice cream that you can see on the screen here? Okay, tutti frutti, that is correct. And yes, all the answers are correct. So let me tell you, that is tutti frutti ice cream. Lovely flavor, isn't it? And let's move ahead to the next one. That is again mouth watering, isn't it? What does that look to you? Look at the color, look at what you have there. I can see some nuts, I can see banana slices there, and two scoops of ice cream. Yes. What do you think is the flavor? Caramel is one option that I'm getting there. Chocolate is another one. Okay, so let's check that out. That is not both of them. It is butterscotch, right? Okay, so let's move ahead. There we go with the third one, and this is one of my favorites and making me really drool. Okay, what is this? Chocolate chip. That is correct. Thanks a lot, Bhakti, for that answer there. It is chocolate chip. And moving ahead to the next one, there it is. And that seems to be really delicious, isn't it? A nice option that you have here with fruits and ice cream. Sunday is the answer that I'm getting here. Nobody have to tell me the flavor of the ice cream. Okay, and let me reveal that one. Okay, so yes, it is the Sunday ice cream. Great. Thanks for that answer there. Lovely. Um, okay, so you know your ice creams well. So this is the last one now. Brace yourselves for this one. There it is. What is the name of the ice cream flavor that you see next here on my screen? Here it is. Any answers coming forth? Okay, so let me reveal the answer there. It is strawberry, of course. Okay, great. So, yes, it was mouth watering. Wow, great. Okay, so let's move ahead into the next segment. We have plotting the plot come up next. So, we spoke about the quintessential elements that we need to think about while we are writing a story, just like Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. And now, for plotting the plot, we have again three elements here. One of them we have already discussed, the conflict, and then we have the resolution and also the moral of the story. So, the first thing, let's go into that, the conflict. So, the queen always wanted to be the fairest of them all, and she was always looking forward to get that answer from the mirror, right? But Snow White gave her tough competition. Yes, so that was the conflict which started off with the whole plot of the story. And then the second element here is the resolution. So, how does the story come to an end? We always see that fairy tales have a happy ending. Snow White comes back to life as the prince gave her a true love's kiss, and Snow White goes back to the palace and they live happily ever after. That's the ending there. And most usually in all of the fairy tales we see that there is a happy ending. We have to always remember who is our target audience. Fairy tales are generally targeted towards young kids, and we do not want our young kids to go back disappointed with our story, right? Not any time at all. So have a happy ending for your story. That's the resolution here. And always have a moral for your fairy tale, right? So young kids reading your story would want to have a big shout out message that gets ingrained into their memory, right? And the moral of the story for this particular book here, Snow White and the Seven Dwarf, is that true beauty, it comes from within, and that kindness is always one virtue that is rewarded, while vice always faces the failure, right? So beauty lies in the eyes of the beholder is one famous adage that we have all heard, and that is how it should be. Beauty always lies within. You become beautiful by your deeds, by your actions, by the way that you treat your the people you go around with, right? So the moral of the story here is just that, right? Beauty comes from within. So always have a moral for your story while you're writing a fable or a fairy tale. And with that, let us move ahead to the next segment. We have quiz time coming up next, and that is really interesting, isn't it? So I want all of my audience members to attempt to give answers in the chat box here. These are all real easy questions. I think it's going to be like a piece of cake for you. So do attempt to answer these questions here. It's okay if it even if it goes wrong. Where did the witch live is the first question that we have here. I have told about this in the essential segment. Do think about this and let me know if you have an answer for this one. Where did the witch live? Okay. So let me see if I have any answers coming up here. And that is correct. She lived in the castle, right? So great. Thanks a lot for that, Aditya. And moving ahead to the next question, we have, where is it? Okay, there it is. The next question: with whom did Snow White stay in the forest? That's the next question. And this is quite easy, isn't it? Who stayed with Snow White in the forest? The dwarfs, that's right. The seven dwarfs, that's correct again. Jennifer giving me the correct answer. Bhakti, that's right. Yes, she lived with the seven dwarfs. And now for the next question that we have here, the last one for today's quiz time. Who were Snow White's friends? Think about this. Who were her friends? The creatures in the forest. Yes, that's right. The animals and the seven dwarfs also were her friends, right? So that was the next question that we had. And let's move ahead to another synonymous word that we have for today, which is, here it is. It is vice, right? So vice would mean wickedness, badness, or even evil, right? So those are the synonyms for the word vice. And moving ahead, okay, we come here to the story in a nutshell, the one thing that you all were waiting for, the synopsis that I'm going to give you in today's episode of the story that we are dealing with, right? Snow White and the Seven Dwarf. And let me tell you that the first theme that plays out here is insecurities don't justify mean actions, right? So that's the first theme that we are going to follow here with our story. That's how the story starts. And let me take you through the story here. You can have an interesting time listening out to this story, right? And there are interesting pictures as well. You can see the pretty Snow White there playing and chattering with all of her bird friends, right? And long, long ago, that's how the story starts. In a huge palace, a beautiful princess was born, and her name was Snow White because her hair was black as ebony, her lips as red as rose, and her skin as white as snow. And she was named Snow White, and she was very generous and kind and gentle to everyone. Now, Snow White had a stepmother who was beautiful but utterly cruel, right? So she was really mean, and she had a mystical mirror to which she always used to ask, who is the fairest of us all? And the mirror there always used to say that the queen was the fairest of all. Listening to this, she used to be content until the next day, right? So now Snow White is the one character that gets introduced into the story, and days passed by, and Snow White grew to be an extremely, extremely beautiful girl. And then something very peculiar happened. One day, when the cruel queen asked the mirror who the fairest lady of all is, the mirror answered Snow White, right? So when Snow White attained that age and became a lady, the mirror instantly changed the answer and always used to say that the fairest lady of us all is Snow White. And hearing this, of course, as we all would understand, the queen got infuriated. She was really furious with envy. She decided to get Snow White killed and to remove her from her way so that the mirror again could answer that the queen was the fairest of us all, right? So that's how the story started, with that theme playing out here. And then the next thing we see is that to kill Snow White, she appointed a huntsman to take Snow White into the forest and kill her there, so that no one comes to know about this. Although the huntsman took Snow White into the woods, he was somehow taken aback, and he decided that he would not kill Snow White. Rather, he told Snow White the whole scenario and left her there in the woods, thinking that she would not be able to come back to the palace, right? Now, Snow White was all alone in the forest, and she was scared and completely unaware as to how to find her way out of the forest. Now, she started sobbing and running hither thither, nervous as hell, her nerves rattling. And when she was passing by, she saw a small house, and since it was getting darker, she takes a sigh of relief and approached the house. So now that was how the first part of the story played. And before we go any further, I would like to take you through one of the synonymous words, which is thorns. Yes. So the word thorn would have synonyms prickle, spike, or spicule, right? So these are the different words, the similar word meanings for thorn. And do jot them down in your Google journal and try using them in your vocabulary wherever appropriate. Yes. So, with that, let's move ahead to the second theme for our story, which is beauty comes from within. Yes. Now, let's see what happens next. So as you would remember, that Snow White saw that it was getting darker, and she stumbles across a house, and she approaches that house. Now the next scene, we see that she enters the house, but there's no one inside. Everything in the house was little, it was all tiny. The house looked extremely messy. She cleaned the house, and when she was exhausted, she lay across the small beds in a row. And after some time, the residents of the house, they came back, right? Now that's the introduction of the seven dwarfs. And the seven dwarfs, they returned from an exhaustive day at the mines, and they were startled to see their house so clean. Then they saw Snow White lying down sleeping in their beds, and the next thing we know, they screamed with shock, totally aghast. And Snow White, on hearing them shout, she also cried out loud in astonishment. And then all the dwarfs introduced themselves to Snow White, and finally, they all got to know that they were all harmless, and they became the best of friends, right? That's how seven dwarfs get introduced into the story. They get acquainted with the whole incident with the huntsman and how she found her way into this house of the seven dwarfs. And the dwarfs felt real empathy for her, they felt pity for her, and they told her that she can stay in the house if she can help them with the household chores and make them their supper. Snow White happily accepted the condition, and they all started living merrily together. During the day, when the dwarfs went into the mines to work, Snow White used to be all alone at home, but she used to play with all of the small birds and the animals in the forest, and she was really content and peaceful with the way her life was leading, right? Now, the cruel queen, in the misconception that Snow White has got killed by the huntsman, she again proudly now asks the mirror the same question yet again: who is the fairest lady of us all? And to her biggest dismay, to her biggest shock, she got the reply from the mirror again that it was Snow White. And now she was fiercely puzzled because she was under the misconception that Snow White would have already got killed. Now, this made her understand that Snow White has not been killed and the huntsman has deceived her. And this time, she makes a plan to take charge of Snow White all by herself and see to it that she gets eradicated from her path. Now, what is the plan that the cruel queen has? Is something which the story takes us into next. She went to her secret room and poisoned an apple, and it was so heavily poisoned that even a small bite that someone would have of that apple would definitely get killed. She impersonated herself as a hag and left for the dwarf's house. So you can see how she has impersonated herself so very wonderfully. She has done a beautiful job, and she left towards the dwarf's house. And here again, reaching the dwarf's house, the wicked queen knocks on the door, and in order to keep her safe, Snow White was forbidden by all of those seven dwarfs to open the door to strangers. Snow White tried to open the window, and from there, she sneaked in and asked the purpose of the old lady at the door. The queen, in disguise, told Snow White that she is selling tastiest apples that there are. Reluctant to take it at first, poor Snow White falls into that trap and gets enticed by the beautiful apple. And the next thing we know, she merely took a bite of that poisoned apple and fell to the ground dead, right? So that is how the story plays out. And in the next scene, we see that the wicked queen is cackled. That means that she is elated because she has finally, you know, eradicated Snow White from her path, and she goes back to the palace. Now, once again, she asks the mirror, who is the fairest lady of us all? And this time, to her utter wonder, the mirror replies, "You, my queen." And she gives a loud, evil laugh. When the dwarfs returned from their work, they were shocked to see Snow White lying dead on the floor. They try to shake her, they try talking to her, but lo and behold, they get to know that she's already dead and they began crying. Now, they keep her safe inside a transparent glass coffin and make sure that one of them is always there to protect that coffin. That's something that the seven dwarfs do. And once it so happens that a charming prince, is passing by that forest, and he sees that coffin there, the glass coffin in which the dead body of Snow White is kept. And he had known and loved Snow White, and when he saw her in the coffin, he asked the dwarfs what exactly had happened. And what were the incidents that took place. And after he gets to know about all of the sequence of events that happened from the dwarfs, all about the brutal incident, he requests the dwarfs to hand him over the coffin. And the dwarfs initially denied, but they give in and get convinced by the charming prince. The prince opens the coffin and kisses Snow White's white hand. And with that kiss of love, um, to the next scene that we see is full of wonder and excitement, because um, Snow White there, she wakes up at once, and the prince's love for Snow White won over the wicked queen's hatred for her, right? And that's how the story gets resolved. And we see here in the next scene that both the prince and the extremely beautiful Snow White are together, right? So people in and around the kingdom, they get to know about the queen's cruel act, and she was thus banished forever from the land. The prince also was extremely elated at the turn of events, and both of them, Prince and Snow White, they get married and they live happily ever after. Now, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs story, which we saw the synopsis of right now, it teaches us the essence of having faith and being really kind, right? So no matter how evil the force is against kindness, the latter always emerges to be victorious, right? So it is two morals that this story gives us. One of them is that beauty lies within, and beauty is always in the eyes of the beholder, right? And it's not always about the outer beauty. It is more to do with how you are within, right? So all of these um, you know good acts or good deeds, kindness, all of this gets rewarded for sure, even though late, but it does get noticed. That's the model that we get here from this story. With that, we come to the end of the story, and I hope that you all had fun listening out to this story once again, right? Now let me take you through another synonymous word, which is convince. So the prince here, the charming prince, is really successful in convincing the dwarfs to open that glass coffin and to have a look at Snow White, right? So the synonyms for convince would be persuade, assure, and in different terms, sway as well. So do check out in Google how all of these words can be used in different interpretations, and try using them in your vocabulary wherever appropriate, right? Now, Ramya Chaitanya says that her daughter really loved it, and thanks a lot for that, Ramya. Great. I'm glad that she heard the story. Yes. So yes, and I have other emojis as well come up here. Great. So let's move ahead into our next segment. It is again another fun segment that we have here. Do attempt to give me the answers to this one. It is a jumbled words segment where we have different words come up onto my screen, but all of the words are jumbled up, and you need to unjumble the alphabets and give me the correct word in the chat box, right? So the hint is that all of these words are related to today's episode. The first word that we have here, that is one of the characters in our story. It's quite easy. Do let me know if you have an answer for that one. Unjumble the words, the letters, and give me the correct word. A 5-letter word, and it is one of the characters in our story. That is correct. It is witch. Thanks for that answer there. Which it is. Yes, Jennifer, Ramya, Aditya, thanks again. All of those answers are correct. And let's move ahead to the next one. We only have two for today. So here is the last one playing out. Okay, so that's also quite easy. What is that word there? You can also check out that word in Google and understand what that word means, right? Yes, that is correct again. It is dwarf, right? Thanks again for all of those answers there. Lovely. Witch and dwarf. These were the two words that we had in today's episode. And with that, we come to the end of our episode for today. But before I end the broadcast, I would strongly encourage each one of you to try writing a small story, just like Snow White and the seven dwarfs, right? So think about all the learnings that you have had from today's episode. What were all of the prerequisites that we learned in today's episode? What were the plot building pointers that makes our story more and more interesting and enticing for our audiences? Think about all of this and try putting pen to paper and write a short fairy tale story, a fable story, all by yourself, right? So that is one thing that I would really love all of my audiences to be trying their hands at. And with that, we come to the end of our episode. And on Monday, we would be coming back again at 6 p.m. India time. Do stay tuned with me. And the genre that we would be seeing next will be fantasy, right? So this is going to be the broader genre, fantasy, all of the speculative, imaginative elements that we will have, magical elements that we will have in our fantasy story. Of course, the subgenre will be something that will be different within fantasy, right? So yes, do stay tuned in with me on Monday as well at 6 p.m. India time. I am Sapna Mahadevan signing out for today. Ramya says, thank you, and you're really welcome. It is all my pleasure. Do watch all of the episodes that we have aired till now. It will be available in all of the different platforms that you're watching me from. Yes. And with that, until the time I meet you all next, I want all of you to stay safe, to take care of yourselves, and be happy and stay smiling. Bye bye.